Why did they skip her name at roll call? The others had stood tall, their names echoing across the command center, one by one like a ritual of belonging. But when the final voice called silence, she remained invisible, forgotten, or perhaps deliberately left behind. Morgan didn't flinch. She had grown used to it, the sting of being unseen, the quiet insult of being underestimated. It was a wound she no longer showed, though it burned just the same. In rooms full of men with scars and medals, her strength had never been her shoulders or her fists. It was her mind. And that, she knew, was more dangerous than they were willing to admit. The alarm klaxon still echoed through the hall. Red light bathed the sterile walls, warning of something far larger than anyone in that room had yet grasped. On the screens, chaos played out in real time. The U.S. Embassy in Baku, Azerbaijan, swarmed, its walls blackened by fire. 12 diplomats bound, hooded, waiting for an end that would come in less than an hour if no one moved. She should have been at the table. Instead, she stood at the back, arms crossed, her presence tolerated but never welcomed. Operation Neptune is already compromised. Admiral Harrison's gravelly voice cut through the tension. He wasn't a man who wasted words. Silver hair, storm blue eyes, and a mustache that made him look like he'd been carved out of a century-old war photograph. He looked like the kind of leader history would remember, but even legends could be broken. The room was silent. Every man in uniform, Navy SEALs, Delta, Rangers, watched as footage showed an advance team under fire, bullets snapping with impossible accuracy. One man fell, another dragged him back, and then the feed cut out. How did they know exactly where we'd be? Harrison's voice carried like thunder. No one answered, no one dared. Except her. Because you're using tactics from 1985. The words left her lips before she could stop them. A ripple went through the room, 60 sets of eyes swiveling toward the small woman in the navy blazer and wire-rimmed glasses. Colonel's stare could have burned holes through steel. And you are. Before she could speak, Harrison answered for her. The one person in this room who might save those 12 Americans. His voice dropped, deliberate. Lieutenant Commander Morgan, the floor is yours. The silence shifted, turned sharper. Suspicion, resentment, challenge. She felt it pressing on her chest like a weight, but Morgan didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the tile, and pulled up the tactical map. They're not improvising, she said, her voice steady despite the hostility radiating from and his men. They're running a playbook, the same one the Soviets used for embassy takeovers in 1978. Department V, a doctrine built to exploit everything we do best, our predictability, our arrogance, our faith in the same old tactics. Her fingers danced across the keys, pulling up archival footage, diagrams, parallels, entry points, timelines, communication cutoffs. It was all there, almost identical. And where did you get this? Snapped. From a history book. I didn't get it, she said, eyes locking on his without blinking. I recognized it. Her confidence disarmed him more than her words. Around the room, men who dismissed her seconds earlier now leaned forward, curiosity fighting against skepticism. Harrison watched her, silent, his jaw tight. He already knew the truth. He had known her father, her grandfather. He had been the one to protect her position in the shadows for years, letting her build the Morgan Protocol while no one gave her credit. But now he was forcing her into the light. Scoffed. So you're suggesting some terrorists in Azerbaijan got their hands on a Soviet playbook from the 70s? What's next, Commander? You going to tell me himself is giving the orders? Kate didn't rise to the bait. She simply pulled up the split-screen imagery of the advance team ambush, side by side with grainy black and white stills from Morocco, 1978. The resemblance was chilling. The same angles, the same kill zones, the same trap. They didn't get it, she said softly. They were born into it. This isn't about stolen pages or luck. This is about a sleeper operation buried for decades now waking up. Azerbaijan isn't the target, it's the opening move. The weight of her words hung in the room. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others narrowed their eyes. Inside, Kate's heart hammered, though her face betrayed nothing. She hated the attention, hated the suspicion. She had perfected the art of invisibility, hiding behind files and reports while her system saved lives under other people's names. But now she was exposed. And exposure in her world was fatal. Harrison's voice broke the silence. "Colonel, she's on your planning team, effective immediately. Full operational access." Jaw flexed. "Yes, sir." The words were obedience, but his eyes promised war. The meeting broke apart, operators moving to stations, planners returning to their maps. Kate stood still, the aftershocks of adrenaline trembling through her chest. She should have felt vindicated, standing at the front. Instead, she felt the familiar sting of being tolerated, not trusted. She had just saved them from walking into another slaughter, and yet half of them still saw her as a liability. She wasn't here for them. She was here for the 12 bound figures on that grainy footage, their lives dangling on a thread. As she left the room, a shadow moved at the edge of her vision. A man in civilian clothes, posture too rigid to be casual, eyes too sharp, watching her. She turned her head, slow, deliberate. By the time she looked fully, he was gone. Coincidence? She didn't believe in coincidence. Not anymore. Her hand brushed the inside of her jacket where her grandfather's PPK rested. Cold steel, old but reliable. A relic of Berlin. A reminder that the world she lived in wasn't built on trust. It was built on vigilance. She didn't draw it. Not here, not yet. Instead, she memorized the height, the angle, the exit point he must have used. She would file it away, a detail for later. Because right now, Admiral Harrison was waiting, and 12 diplomats were running out of time. When she reached his office through the side entrance, Harrison was already staring at satellite imagery, his broad shoulders tense. Major Walker stood beside him, arms folded, sharp eyes tracking Kate as she entered. 3 weeks ago, Harrison said without looking up, you predicted this exact scenario, down to the entry points. Kate didn't hesitate. Pattern recognition, sir. He finally turned, blue eyes locking onto hers with a force that felt almost paternal, and yet harder, colder. Walker, secure the room. Walker pressed a switch on what looked like a coffee maker, a jammer. The hum filled the space, cutting them off from the world outside. Your anonymity was a luxury, Harrison said. Today, it cost 3 men their lives, and it's going to cost more if we don't act. Kate's stomach twisted, guilt pressing against the wall she kept so carefully built inside. 3 men, real names, real families, dead because no one had listened to the warning she'd buried in a report 3 weeks ago. My effectiveness depends on obscurity, she said quietly. Your father would disagree. Harrison pulled a photograph from a drawer, black and white. Beirut, 1983. 3 men, himself younger and leaner. Her grandfather, eyes sharp even then. And beside them, her father, Thomas Morgan, the man she never remembered. Harrison's voice softened. I made a promise to your grandfather. I protected you here, shielded your work. But Prometheus, he stopped, searching her eyes. It's real, isn't it? The word cut into her like ice. She hadn't spoken it aloud in years. A word whispered in her grandfather's journals, half believed, half feared. A Cold War legend. A sleeper operation built not for years, but for generations. Yes, she said finally. Walker leaned forward. What is Prometheus? Kate hesitated, admitting it meant accepting it, but there was no choice. It's not just about hostages or an ambush, it's a system, a design to survive the fall of the Soviet Union itself, a revenge play decades in the making, and Azerbaijan, she drew in a breath. It's just the first step. Silence pressed down on the room. Harrison closed the drawer with a quiet finality. Then we have less time than I thought. Kate felt the weight settle on her chest. The burden she had carried in silence was now out in the open, shared, but heavier. Because now she wasn't just the ghost in the corner, the invisible mind behind the curtain. She was on the stage, exposed, a target. And somewhere in the darkness beyond those walls, someone was already moving against her. She could feel it. Not because of who she was, but because of what she knew. And the clock was ticking. What was waiting for her back at the farm? Kate had asked herself that question countless times on the drive, headlights off, the narrow Virginia road stretching out like a strip of memory. The farm had always been her sanctuary, a place of childhood ghosts and whispered lessons, a place where her grandfather had hidden secrets inside walls that smelled of hay and tobacco, a place that felt untouchable. But tonight the silence was wrong. The gravel drive should have been dark, except for the single security light that old Marine Davis never failed to keep burning. It was out, dead. And the truck, the old Ford, was missing. Kate slowed her car, pulling off into the woods before the house even came into view. Every instinct screamed at her. Too quiet, too easy. Through the branches she saw them, two men in tactical gear sweeping the perimeter with military precision. Not local law enforcement, not random intruders, professionals. Her chest tightened. Someone had come here hunting, not just for documents, not just for the past, but for her. She killed the engine, retrieved her grandfather's from the glove box, and slipped into the night. The familiar weight of the weapon in her hand steadied her. The farm wasn't just a farm. It had always been something more, a training ground disguised as a childhood home. Beneath the barns and fields lay tunnels and chambers her grandfather had built during the Cold War, hidden places meant for moments like this. And tonight it was the only way in. The culvert smelled of damp earth and mildew. Kate crouched low, flashlight beams swallowed by shadows as she counted the turns. 1, 2, 3. Every step was muscle memory, drilled into her long before she had understood why her grandfather had forced her to practice these routes over and over, like games in the dark. When she reached the trapdoor beneath the old hay bales, she paused, listening. Above her, boots shifted on wooden planks. The intruders were already inside. She lifted the trapdoor in silence and emerged into the barn office. To anyone else, it was nothing: dusty books, old filing cabinets, agricultural charts pinned to the wall. But Kate knew better. She moved straight to the cabinet labeled Crop Rotation 1975-1980. Her hands didn't shake as she turned the key around her neck and unlocked the drawer. Inside lay her grandfather's real legacy. She pulled out a file marked Morocco Agricultural Exchange 1978, a code name, innocuous on the outside, but she knew what it meant. She snapped photographs with her micro camera, pages of tactical notes, coded messages, fragments of operations that had shaped the hidden war. And then she found it. A blackened white photograph. 3 men outside in Rabat, Morocco, her grandfather, Admiral Harrison, much younger, and a third man, tall, Slavic features, hard eyes. On the back, in her grandfather's precise handwriting, Thomas Bill Alexander, Rabat, March 1978. Her blood ran cold. Alexander. Not just a face in a photograph, a connection to everything. She slipped the picture into her jacket just as the barn door creaked open. Somebody been here. The voice carried an accent, American, but tinged with something Eastern European. Kate froze, crouched in the shadows of the trapdoor. "What are we looking for?" another voice asked. "Anything related to Morgan's Cold War operations. Prometheus, Department V." Her pulse hammered. They knew. They weren't just here for files. They were here for her family's secrets, for Prometheus itself. She slid into the tunnel, pulling the trapdoor shut just as Boots stepped inside the office above. The darkness swallowed her again. Her breath stayed steady, controlled. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. Half a mile away, she emerged from the tunnel near a stand of oaks. From here, she could see the driveway. A black SUV idled there, headlights dimmed, diplomatic plates, Russian Federation. They had come openly, boldly, under the shield of immunity. She melted deeper into the woods, circling toward her hidden cabin 2 miles west. Another lesson from her grandfather: never have one fallback, always have three. The cabin smelled of cedar and dust. Under a floorboard she retrieved a rusted ammunition box. Inside, cash, passports, a prepaid satellite phone, her grandfather's insurance. She dialed a number burned into her memory. Davis Fuel and Service, answered a gravelly voice. It's the farm's compromised. Cabin 17, came the reply, code. He was safe but under surveillance. I need to speak with Jack, urgent. He's playing chess at diner, special game tonight. Translation: Jack, the old CIA station chief, was at his backup location, protocol active. Understood, she said, and destroyed the phone piece by piece, scattering the fragments in the leaves. The farm was gone, the enemy had found her. But the game wasn't over, not yet. Jack looked older than the legends told about him. 82, hair gone white, but his eyes, sharp, dangerous, still cut through her like a blade. They hit the farm, Kate said, sliding the photographs onto his desk. Russian diplomatic plates, American operators. They knew exactly what to look for. Prometheus. Department V. Didn't flinch. He only opened a drawer, pulled out a wax-sealed envelope and set it down. Your grandfather left this with me. Said it was only to be opened if the old patterns came back. Inside was a leather-bound book, her grandfather's writing. She flipped to the V section. Alexander, Security Consultants International, 1701 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. When winter wakes, the game resumes. Her throat tightened. The name from the photograph her grandfather had known. Who is he? She asked. His jaw flexed. KGB, Department V, their disruption division. Fanatical, brilliant, except wasn't what he seemed. Her eyes narrowed. A double agent. Shook his head. Not exactly. He was pragmatic. He saw the world on the edge of annihilation and decided to carve his own path. He came to your grandfather in 1974 with intelligence that stopped a Soviet plan from triggering nuclear war. Kate stared at the black and white face in the photo. A man caught between two worlds, friend, foe, both. What happened to him? Officially retired after the Soviet collapse, unofficially disappeared. Some say consultant, some say Kremlin. All I know is if Prometheus is waking, he'll be at the center of it. Kate picked up the phone, dialed the number scrawled in the book. 3 rings, then a voice, accented, elderly but sharp. Security Consultants International. This is Morgan, she said. I believe you knew my grandfather. Silence, then a slow exhale. Thomas spoke of you often. Her pulse quickened. Winter has awakened, she said, using the phrase. Indeed it has, the voice replied. And the game board is already in motion. We should meet. Chesapeake cabin. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Come armed. Alone. And the voice dropped lower. Trust no one. Whoever activated Prometheus has friends inside your own house. The line went dead. Kate lowered the phone, her breath trembling. She should have felt clarity. Instead, the weight of suspicion deepened. If was right, the threat wasn't just in Azerbaijan. It wasn't just Russian. It was inside her own government. Inside the very walls where she worked. She drove back toward Jasosh at dawn, eyes scanning every mirror, every passing car. Once inside, she slipped through the side corridors, instincts alert. Colonel was waiting. His earlier hostility burned away, replaced by grim focus. Your assessment was correct, he said. Satellite confirms, hostage takers repositioning exactly as you predicted. They're following the playbook. For the first time, his tone carried no disdain, only respect, reluctant but real. Kate nodded, the relief fleeting, because she knew what it meant. The playbook was open, and the next page was already written. Somewhere in the shadows, the enemy was 3 steps ahead. And now they were watching her. What kind of man waits at the end of a 30-year silence? Kate asked herself that as she approached the Chesapeake cabin at dawn, the road behind her a twisted map of misdirection, 3 vehicles swapped, 2 hours of counter-surveillance maneuvers. Every turn had been measured, every shadow studied. And still, she wasn't sure she hadn't been followed. The cabin was small, weathered, framed by fog rising off the bay. Smoke curled from its chimney. Someone was inside. She circled once, eyes scanning for signs of extra vehicles. None. The shoreline was quiet. Still, her grip tightened around her grandfather's. The door opened before she could knock. "Morgan," the man said. Alexander stood tall despite his years. 70s, maybe older. Hair silver, eyes pale blue, features sharp as if carved from old stone. He wore a tailored suit, not tactical gear, but his presence radiated control. A man who had lived his life in shadows, yet carried himself like someone used to giving orders. "You have your grandfather's eyes," he said. Kate kept her weapon low but ready. "And you have the look of someone who's been expecting me." "Of course." His voice was calm, deliberate. "Winter has awakened. The game resumes." She hesitated, then stepped inside. The cabin smelled faintly of wood smoke and leather. On a table by the window sat a chessboard, pieces mid-game. Her gaze froze. She recognized the position instantly. It was the same board her grandfather had left unfinished years ago. Lips curved slightly. "Your grandfather and I played by courier, a game that lasted decades. That position," he gestured, "was where we left it when he died." Kate swallowed. "You weren't just adversaries." "No." His eyes softened, though only for a heartbeat. "We were necessary to each other. Between men trapped on opposite sides of a world balanced on the edge of destruction, necessity sometimes becomes something like friendship." Kate studied him, trying to pierce through his calm exterior. "Friend, enemy, both. Called you a double agent," she said finally. "Said you designed Prometheus." Didn't flinch. "Not inaccurate, but incomplete. In 1969, I was a true believer. I helped conceptualize Prometheus, a system meant to cripple Western institutions long after the war was lost or won. A sleeper network buried so deep it could awaken decades later. But by 1974, he paused. His gaze drifted to the window, to the fog curling over the bay. I had seen enough. Nuclear brinkmanship. Ideologues on both sides ready to burn the world for pride. That was when I approached your grandfather." Kate's jaw tightened. "And he trusted you." "He didn't trust me, he leaned closer. Thomas Morgan was not a man who trusted easily, but he knew the difference between ideology and annihilation. Together, we prevented at least 3 flashpoints. Morocco was one. There were others." Kate stared at him, her mind pulling pieces together. "You tried to dismantle Prometheus." "We thought we had." His voice darkened. "But Prometheus was built with redundancies, agents buried in governments, protocols hidden in innocuous codes, targets designed to remain relevant across generations. We dismantled what we could. The rest," he spread his hands, "we could not reach." Kate leaned forward, voice sharp. "It's active. Azerbaijan was a diversion, was turned. The farm was compromised. And now," she hesitated, then added quietly, "someone inside JSOC is feeding them our moves." Studied her. "Then the game has begun in earnest." He reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate, and placed a small object on the table. A chess piece. Black knight. Onyx, polished smooth with age. "From Berlin, 1974. The first game your grandfather and I played face to face. He would want you to have it now for the end game." Kate didn't touch it. Her voice stayed steady. "What's the target?" Pulled a slim folder from beneath the chessboard and slid it across to her. Inside were names, places, Brussels Security Conference, NATO communication nodes, U.S. financial systems, nuclear command chains. A multi-pronged strike, not one target, all of them. Kate felt her throat tighten. This would paralyze us, governments, militaries, banks, everything. Yes, his tone was grave. A strike designed to fracture the West without firing a single missile. The Azerbaijan embassy crisis was a lure, just as Morocco was in 1978. The true attack begins in less than 72 hours. Kate's voice sharpened. Who's running it? Said, pulling out a photograph. Severe features, cold eyes. Former Department V director, always a true believer. He has spent 30 years positioning assets inside your systems. Men like men far higher. Kate stared at the photograph, the image burning into her mind. Why now, she asked. Because you are vulnerable, replied. After 9/11, your intelligence agencies turned inward, terrorism, not espionage. Your Cold War experts retired. Memory faded, has waited for this moment, and he has it. Kate's hand closed into a fist. So we stop him. His eyes locked onto hers. You cannot stop him through official channels. He owns too many of them. The National Security Council, parts of your own command. If you go through channels, you will be buried before you reach Brussels. Kate's instincts screamed at her, and I should trust you. Leaned closer, his voice low, sharp. No, do not trust me. Trust the evidence. Trust what you see. Trust what your grandfather saw, that the real war was never communism against capitalism. It was reason against ideology, survival against annihilation. Kate finally touched the black knight, its surface cold in her palm. She slid it into her pocket. Then we move in the shadows. Nodded once. Yes, like your grandfather, outside channels, outside orders. The only way to fight Prometheus is to play the game the way it was designed. By the time Kate left the cabin, the sun was up, throwing cold light across the bay. She drove back toward Jasosh, the black knight heavy in her pocket. Inside, the command center buzzed. Operation Neptune was entering final planning. Operators moved like currents in a storm, focused, disciplined. Admiral Harrison intercepted her near the entrance. His eyes, usually unreadable, sharpened. You met him. Kate froze. Met who? Don't. Harrison's voice was low, steady. I worked with your grandfather. I know about the Chesapeake cabin, about. Kate held his gaze. Then you know what's coming. He nodded slowly, cracked just enough under interrogation, mentioned Prometheus, mentioned, but the rest. His voice hardened. I need to know if we're fighting ghosts or if this thing is real. Kate reached into her jacket, pulled out the folder. She laid it on his desk. It's real, and it's already moving. Harrison studied the documents in silence. His face was carved in stone, but his eyes betrayed the weight settling on him. If this is true, he said finally, then we're staring at the most dangerous compromise since the Cold War. Kate's voice was quiet but steady. Sir, we don't have days, we don't have hours. Brussels is in less than 3. The embassy is only the beginning. Harrison closed the folder, his expression unreadable. Neptune launches in 6 hours. The hostages expire in 12. We can't abort. I'm not asking you to abort, Kate said. I'm asking you to give me space, cover, access, and your word that nothing leaves this room until I have proof. Harrison's jaw flexed. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he nodded. You have it, but Morgan, his voice grew soft, almost paternal. If you're wrong about if he's playing you. Kate swallowed. Then I'll finish what my grandfather started. Harrison held her gaze. Then he straightened, his military bearing returning. Briefing begins in 30 minutes. After that, do what you must. Kate turned to leave. But in her pocket, the Black Knight felt heavier than any weapon she had ever carried. The endgame had begun. Something was wrong. Kate didn't say it at first, not out loud. But she felt it in her chest, the way a storm feels in the bones before the sky darkens. The thermal feed from Azerbaijan showed 12 bodies, hooded, bound, guarded by 4 men with rifles. The hostages, the target of Neptune. The reason half of Jasosh was moving like a living machine through the shadows of Baku. But the guards hadn't moved. Not once, not in 7 minutes. No shifts, no scratches, no redistribution of weight. "Colonel," Kate said, her voice low, urgent, "those aren't men." His brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "They're decoys." He didn't argue, not anymore. He keyed his mic instantly. "All teams, possible deception at primary location. Proceed with maximum caution." On the screen, Alpha Team approached the hostage room. Helmet cameras showed the outlines, figures slumped, guards upright. They breached the door and froze. "Command, the hostages are staged. Thermal mannequins. Repeat, decoys only." The air in the command center went razor-thin. Kate's eyes darted to the embassy schematics, searching for anomalies. She found it, an inconsistency in the northeast wing, a wall twice as thick as it should have been. "Alpha, check the north wall," she ordered. "There's concealed space." Seconds later, the feed confirmed it. Heat signatures, real bodies. The hidden door came down, and there they were, 12 diplomats, alive, bound, terrified. "Hostages secured," Alpha reported. Relief swept through the room, but Kate's gut twisted. Something still wasn't right. "Scan the floor," she said. The pause lasted only seconds. "Command, we have IEDs, daisy chain setup, enough to drop the entire wing." A trap, designed to collapse the building, killing both the hostages and the rescuers in one perfect, televised tragedy. His voice cut through. "Priority is extraction, all teams, immediate protocol." Kate's eyes flicked to the satellite feed. A van had left the embassy 20 minutes earlier, now parked near the airport. 4 men inside, operating comms gear. "They're watching," she realized, "waiting for confirmation that we've reached the hostages before they trigger it." Didn't hesitate. "Jam all signals. Quick reaction force, intercept that van." The command center erupted with coordinated motion. On screen, operators dragged terrified diplomats through smoke and dust, guiding them toward points. At the same time, the QRF surrounded the van, capturing the men inside with their trigger device. Minutes later, the call came. "Hostages clear, no casualties." Silence, then a cheer. Not loud, not wild, but controlled, the release of breath from men who rarely allowed themselves to breathe. Operation Neptune, complete, 12 lives saved, 0 Americans lost. Turned toward Kate. His face was streaked with fatigue, but for the first time, genuine respect softened his features. "Your analysis saved the mission. Without those adjustments, we'd be counting bodies right now." Kate shook her head. "The teams executed perfectly." But inside, her chest ached, because she knew Neptune had been a victory, but only on the surface. The embassy crisis was never the real target. It was bait. 30 minutes later, Admiral Harrison's secure office felt colder than usual. The blinds were drawn, the counter-surveillance humming. Major Walker stood by the door, arms folded, her sharp gaze flicking between Kate and the Admiral. "The hostages were never the point," Harrison said. Kate nodded. "They wanted to pull resources, focus us on Azerbaijan while they prepared the real strike." "Brussels," Walker said. Her tone wasn't a question. Kate opens folder, sliding it across the desk. "NATO defense ministers, intelligence chiefs, every major player in one place. If Prometheus hits Brussels, the West loses coordination in an instant. Panic, paralysis, confusion." Harrison studied the papers, his weathered face unreadable. Then his jaw tightened. "And if they strike the financial systems and nuclear chain simultaneously?" Kate finished it for him. "The world tilts on its axis, and we don't tilt back." Silence pressed into the room. Walker finally spoke. "What did give you exactly?" Kate hesitated. She hadn't told them everything, not yet, had warned her trust no one. Targets, timelines, names, she said carefully, and confirmation that is running the operation. Walker exhaled slowly. Then Brussels is the priority. The conference opens in less than 30 hours. Kate's secure phone buzzed, a single message. Confirmed, Mayflower Hotel, meeting with unidentified American contact, 1900 hours. She showed Harrison the screen. His eyes darkened. If he's meeting an American official, that means penetration goes higher than we thought. Kate didn't hesitate. I need to be there. Harrison's voice was firm. Take Walker. Maintain deniability. If he's colluding with someone at that level, we need confirmation before we move. Kate nodded once. The mission had ended, but the war was just beginning. The Mayflower Hotel's bar glowed with quiet opulence. Crystal glasses, polished wood, whispers of conversations in half a dozen languages. Kate sat in a corner, her suit conservative, her hair pinned back. To anyone watching, she looked like a mid-level, not the woman whose analysis had just saved 12 lives across the world. Her glasses streamed encrypted video, every angle recorded. Target entering. Walker's voice came through her earpiece. Kate didn't look up. She raised her glass instead, catching his reflection as he strode through the entrance. Austere, severe, his presence alone enough to bend the air around him. 2 men followed, security, hard-faced and quiet. They moved toward the elevators. Presidential suite, registered under a shell corporation. Minutes later, another arrival. A tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, impeccable in his suit. Kate's stomach clenched. Walker, she whispered, confirm ID. Confirmed, came the reply, her voice tight. That's Lawrence Phillips, National Security Advisor. Kate kept her face neutral, though inside her pulse thundered. The third most powerful man in the American government. A man with access to every classified program, every vulnerability. And he was walking into a suite with. Kate hacked the hotel's internal comms system from her seat, her fingers steady on the tablet hidden beneath her wine glass. The audio feed crackled to life. The Brussels operation remains our primary focus, said, his accent thick. With NATO leadership eliminated, response will be fragmented, Phillips replied, his tone calm, businesslike. My position allows me to ensure attribution falls on non-state actors. By the time the truth is uncovered, the damage will be irreversible. And the Morgan situation? Asked. Kate froze, her name. Phillips didn't hesitate. She's being handled. Her role in Neptune gave us the chance to measure her. She's seen the pattern but not the full scope. An accident will be arranged. Tonight. Kate's hand tightened around her glass until it nearly cracked. Walker's whisper came sharp. We're compromised. 4 unidentified operatives just entered the lobby, tactical positioning. Hunters. In the suite above, his voice cut through the feed. She is dangerous, just like her grandfather. Thomas nearly exposed everything in 91. Phillips's reply was ice. Then it's fitting the granddaughter doesn't live to see the endgame. Kate rose, slow, calm, every movement deliberate. Her wine glass remained half full on the table. She slipped into the service corridor, Walker's voice guiding her. Operatives sweeping the hotel, East Wing. They're tracking electronic signatures. Kate powered down everything but her recorder. Her reflection flickered in the stainless steel of the service door, eyes hard, jaw set. She was no longer invisible. She was the target. And the endgame had arrived. How do you run when the walls are already closing in? Kate didn't wait to answer the question. She slipped through the service corridor, her heels silent on the tile, the hum of the hotel's kitchen freezers masking her movement. Behind her, the lobby cameras showed the 4 men tightening their perimeter, each one moving with the precision of professionals. They weren't here to intimidate. They were here to end her. "East stairwell is clear for now," Walker's voice whispered in her ear. "You've got 90 seconds before they sweep that wing." Kate pushed through the steel door, the stairwell echoing with the metallic clatter of her steps. She descended 2 flights, her breath steady, every sense sharpened. The door to the sub-level parking garage creaked open, then slammed as 2 men entered from the opposite end. They hadn't seen her yet. She froze, pressing herself against the cold concrete wall. The men's voices drifted closer, speaking Russian. She caught fragments. "Morgan, orders, no survivors." Her pulse tightened, but her mind stayed clear. She slid from her jacket, her grandfather's pistol cold against her palm. The first man passed the landing. She stepped out fast, silent. A strike to the throat that pressed into his ribs, silenced shot muffled by his own body. He dropped without sound. The second spun, eyes wide. She fired once more, clean, clinical. He fell. "2 down," she murmured, voice low. Walker's reply was sharp. "Good, but more are converging on your floor, exit route." Kate's eyes scanned, garage ahead, elevators locked down, main exits compromised. "Rooftop," she said. "You're boxed in." "Rooftop," she repeated, already moving. By the time she reached the 12th floor, the stairwell vibrated with the sound of boots below. More operatives. She pushed through into the hallway, blending into the flow of hotel staff pushing carts, tourists fumbling for key cards. But her face had already been marked. One of the men spotted her. He shouted. Kate ducked behind a service cart as a shot rang out, shattering glass. Screams erupted. Guests dropped to the floor, covering their heads. Kate didn't hesitate. She pulled a smoke canister from her bag, a gift from Walker, and rolled it down the hallway. Thick gray plumes swallowed the space, turning chaos into cover. She sprinted, low, fast, weaving through the haze until she reached the emergency ladder at the end of the hall. Up, always up. Her muscles burned as she climbed, each rung slick with condensation. She pushed open the rooftop hatch, the cold night air hitting her face like a slap. The city spread out below, D.C., alive with lights and indifference. Sirens wailed in the distance, but none were coming for her. Walker's voice cut in, urgent. "Inbound asset helicopter, 3 minutes, hold position." Kate ducked low, crouching behind an HVAC unit, scanning the rooftop. Too exposed, too obvious. The hatch behind her burst open. 3 men emerged, rifles raised. She fired first. 1 dropped. She shifted, moved, 2 more shots. The second crumpled. The third advanced, firing controlled bursts. Bullets sparked against the unit, shattering concrete inches from her head. She rolled left, popped up, squeezed the trigger. The man spun and fell. Her pistol clicked empty. She dropped it, retrieving the backup strapped at her ankle. No hesitation. The thrum of rotor blades grew louder. A black helicopter emerged over the edge of the building, spotlight sweeping. But it was Walker. The insignia on its side, Russian. "Walker," Kate hissed, "that's not you." "Negative," Walker snapped. "Ours is 90 seconds out. You need to move now." The Russian bird hovered, its side door sliding open. A gunner swung out, heavy weapon mounted. Kate sprinted across the rooftop, bullets shredding the surface behind her. She dove behind the stairwell enclosure as the gunner opened fire, ripping through metal and concrete. She glanced around the edge, too exposed to take a clean shot. Think, adapt. Her eyes caught the fire hose cabinet bolted to the wall. She yanked the hose free, dragged it toward the helicopter's path, looped it around the protruding steel of the stairwell. As the gunner repositioned, she sprinted, dragging the line taut across the rooftop. The helicopter's landing skid caught the hose with a violent jerk. The bird lurched, tilted, spun. The gunner screamed as the weapon ripped free. The pilot fought for control, barely managing to stabilize before breaking away into the night. Kate collapsed against the stairwell, chest heaving. Then Walker's bird appeared, unmarked, sleek, hovering like salvation. "Go," Walker's voice cut through. Kate sprinted, leapt, caught the skid as the helicopter banked. Hands reached down, hauling her inside. Walker pulled her upright, eyes sharp, jaw clenched. Phillips was in that suite with. Kate nodded, breathless. Confirmed, he's Prometheus's American asset. Walker swore under her breath. That puts this above both our pay grades. Kate stared out the open door as the city fell away beneath them. Then we stop grading pay. We start fighting shadows with shadows. The safe house smelled of dust and gun oil. Walker paced while Kate replayed the recorded audio from the Mayflower suite. Every word clear, every word damning. "Lawrence Phillips," Harrison said over the secure line, his voice cold steel. "The man sits 2 doors down from the president. If this recording is, we're looking at treason on a scale we've never seen." Kate said flatly. "Brussels is the primary strike. Phillips is covering attribution, and Prometheus is operating inside our government." Harrison was silent for a long beat. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Morgan, you realize what this means. You've painted a target on your back that no one survives." Kate's reply was quiet but unwavering. "I was already a target, sir. This just made it official." Walker broke in. "What's the play?" Harrison exhaled. "Officially, nothing. Phillips is untouchable until we have proof airtight enough to withstand the storm. Unofficially," his voice hardened. "Morgan, you and Walker go dark. Full deniability. Find the command node for Prometheus. Cut the head off before Brussels. We'll cover you from here." Kate exchanged a look with Walker. Both women understood. No backup, no extraction, no. Just shadows against shadows. The jet hummed with quiet menace, unmarked and fast, carrying them across the Atlantic. Kate sat in silence, her mind replaying the recording, the look on his face, the cold detachment in Phillips's voice. Walker studied her. "You don't look relieved. You've got proof. You've got confirmation." Kate shook her head. "Proof doesn't matter if no one listens. Harrison will hold as long as he can, but Phillips is inside the circle. If Brussels falls, he'll spin the narrative before the first body is buried." Walker leaned back, arms folded. "Then we make sure Brussels doesn't fall." Kate looked out the window, the black Atlantic endless beneath them. "Prometheus isn't just a network, it's an idea. My grandfather tried to kill it, but ideas don't die, they wait." Her voice dropped almost to herself. "And now it's my turn." Walker said nothing. Because she knew. Kate Morgan wasn't fighting for recognition. She wasn't fighting for medals. She was fighting for something far older, far quieter. The dignity of survival. And as the jet cut through the night, Brussels waited, not knowing the storm that was coming. What does betrayal sound like when it walks the halls of power? Kate heard it in the cadence of Brussels, the clipped shoes of diplomats, the murmured debates of aides, the hollow laughter of officials too used to polished corridors to notice the shadows that hunted them. The NATO Security Conference was a fortress disguised as diplomacy. Concrete walls, blast-proof glass, checkpoints every 50 feet. Dozens of ministers, generals, intelligence chiefs, all of them targets. And somewhere in the polished chaos, Prometheus. Kate and Walker moved through the crowds as 2 more nameless faces. Their credentials were flawless, crafted by Harrison's quiet hand before they had gone dark. But flawless credentials didn't erase the feeling of being hunted. Kate's eyes scanned the atrium. Men with eyes too sharp for aides. Women whose posture betrayed combat training, not clerical work. Security badges that didn't match their supposed assignments. Prometheus had already seated the room. Walker leaned close, her whisper sharp. "I count 6, possibly more." Kate's voice was steady. "Then we're late." Inside the control hub beneath the conference hall, screens glowed with feeds from every corner of Brussels. Analysts tracked faces, movements, credentials. Kate slid the flash drive into the secure system, overriding filters with Harrison's codes. She pulled up's file, targets, locations, methods, cross-referencing with today's layouts. And there it was. A service corridor beneath the Grand Hall, a blind spot in surveillance coverage, a place designed for discreet movements, catering staff, maintenance, and tonight, Prometheus's breach point. Walker, she murmured, East Service Corridor, they're staging there. Walker was already moving. Kate followed, weaving through diplomats in tailored suits, their laughter oblivious. Every step felt heavier, because she knew, if she failed here, the night wouldn't end with diplomats debating policy. It would end with body bags and headlines declaring a new world unraveling. The service corridor smelled of bleach and concrete. Walker's silenced pistol swept ahead, Kate close at her side. 3 men in coveralls rounded the corner. At first glance janitors, but their hands too clean, their gait too precise, and beneath their sleeves the edges of tactical gloves. Kate didn't hesitate, her voice cut the silence. Stop. The men froze. One reached for his belt. Walker fired once, clean center mass, the man crumpled. The other 2 drew weapons, muzzle flashes tearing the shadows. Kate dove left, firing twice. 1 man dropped, screaming. The 3rd lunged for the alarm. Kate's shot took him through the hand. His weapon clattered to the floor. She was on him in seconds, pinning him, pressed to his throat. Where's the trigger? She hissed. The man's eyes burned with fanatic calm. Already armed. Walker knelt, stripping his vest, scanning the lining. C4, timed detonator. Kate ripped the earpiece from his ear and slid it into hers. Static, then a voice. Phase 2 in motion. Brussels will burn. Her blood chilled. She slammed the man unconscious, cuffed him with zip ties. We need the command node, now. Walker's jaw clenched. Phillips. Kate nodded once. Phillips's suite overlooked the grand place, its windows glowing like the lair of a man who believed himself untouchable. Kate and Walker approached through the maintenance stairwell, their steps silent, weapons ready. Inside they found him alone, glass of scotch in hand, jacket draped over the chair. Calm, too calm. Phillips said without turning, his voice was almost warm, I was wondering when you'd arrive. Walker raised her weapon, hands where we can see them. Phillips setting the glass down, but his smile lingered. You've inherited your grandfather's instincts and his stubborn refusal to understand the larger game. Kate kept her aim steady. The larger game is treason. Inside, you've sold out your country for his war. Phillips turned, his eyes cold steel. Country? I didn't betray my country, I saved it. What do you think your grandfather was fighting for? Preservation, continuity, the recognition that chaos can't be controlled by weak men with short terms and shorter memories. Understood that. I understand that. Together, we will burn away the rot. Kate's stomach twisted. His voice wasn't defensive, it was convinced. By murdering thousands, she spat. By forcing rebirth, Phillips countered. Do you really believe NATO is functional, that democracies can withstand what's coming? No, they need collapse, they need shock. Out of ashes comes order. Walker's finger tightened on the trigger. You're insane. Phillips's smile didn't fade. Then shoot. But you won't stop Prometheus. It's not one man, it's not one network, it's inevitability. Kate's earpiece crackled, voice again. Phase 3, detonation sequence locked. Her pulse hammered. Where? She demanded. Phillips chuckled softly. Everywhere. You can save Brussels if you move fast enough. But the financial systems, the command chains, you'll be too late. Kate moved in a flash, slamming him against the wall, pistol under his jaw. How do we stop it? His eyes gleamed. You can't. Walker cuffed him, shoving him into the chair. We'll let Harrison deal with his philosophy later. Kate's voice was ice. We stopped the bombs. The hidden devices weren't in the main hall, not in the obvious places. Prometheus hadn't planned for blunt chaos. They planned for symbolism. Kate and Walker tore through schematics, instincts racing against time. The answer came like a blade through fog. The hall's foundation, beneath the stage where NATO's Secretary General was scheduled to speak. They sprinted down the sub-basement stairs, every echo a reminder of the seconds slipping away. Security forces swarmed the halls now, but none had clearance to follow them this deep. In the utility room, Kate found it, a crate disguised as electrical housing, wires snaking like veins, enough C4 to level the building. The timer, 16 minutes. Walker exhaled sharply. We don't have the kit for this. Kate's eyes locked on the device, her voice steadied. My grandfather trained me for this. She knelt, hand steady, mind filtering through the drills. Redundant circuits, delayed triggers, dead man. She cut one wire, the timer sped up. Damn it, Walker hissed. Kate didn't flinch. She cut another, slower this time. The timer froze. Her breath released in a shudder, disabled. Walker exhaled hard. 2 seconds slower and we'd be vapor. Kate rose, sweat beading her brow. That was Brussels, but Phillips was right about one thing. This isn't over. They dragged Phillips into a secured van an hour later, NATO forces none the wiser. Admiral Harrison's voice crackled through the encrypted comm. Brussels safe, Phillips in custody, but is still out there, and if he triggers the financial system strike, Brussels will look like child's play. Kate stared out the window as the van sped into the night. Then we finish this. Harrison's voice softened. Morgan, you've carried this further than anyone had a right to ask, but understand, when this ends, there may not be anything left of you to bring home. Her chest tightened, but her voice stayed calm. I was never fighting for home. I was fighting because if someone didn't, no one would. The line went silent. Walker placed a hand on her shoulder. So what's next? Kate's eyes hardened. And the command node, before the world burns. In the dark, sat alone in a safe house outside Warsaw, a laptop glowing before him. On the screen, lines of code counted down. Banking systems, power grids, launch protocols. A digital storm poised to shatter nations. He sipped his vodka slowly, his eyes cold. The war was only beginning. And Morgan was already on her way. What does a man look like when he believes history bends to his will? His face lingered in Kate's mind as their jet dropped low over Poland. Hard lines carved by years in shadows, eyes like glacial stone. A man who had waited decades, feeding off the silence of the Cold War, patient enough to outlast ideologies and leaders alike. And now, he was hours from pulling the trigger on a system that would fracture the world. The safe house outside Warsaw wasn't on any map. Harrison's back-channel intel came from himself, a final breadcrumb from a man who claimed he had betrayed one cause to save another. Kate didn't know if she believed him, but the coordinates matched Prometheus's digital activity. The command node was there. Walker studied the satellite photos spread across the jet's table. A rural compound, high fences, communications array disguised as agricultural equipment. Not a fortress, Walker said, but not soft either. Cameras here, guard rotations every 12 minutes. Kate's gaze traced the photos. They don't expect a direct hit. They think secrecy is armor. Walker glanced at her, and if it's a trap? Kate's answer was quiet. Then we walk into it anyway. They hit the ground 2 hours before dawn. Cold Polish air cut their lungs as they moved through the tree-lined frost crunching beneath their boots. The compound rose ahead, its lights muted, its walls unassuming. Kate crouched, raising the thermal scope. 3 guards at the perimeter, 2 more by the comms array. Inside, heat signatures clustered in one room, too many screens to be a kitchen. The command hub. She felt the black night in her pocket, its weight like a reminder. The game's end was close. 3 minutes until rotation, Walker whispered. Kate nodded. On my mark. They moved like shadows, low and silent. One guard passed near the fence, his breath fogging in the air. Kate was on him before he exhaled again, arm around his throat, blade pressed clean, body lowered silently to the ground. Walker handled the next. A muffled shot, a body dragged into the dark. By the time the rotation completed, the outer perimeter was silent. They slipped through the fence, cutting the wire slow, deliberate. Inside the compound, Kate felt it before she saw it. The silence was too deep, the patterns too neat. Walker, she whispered, it's staged. Walker's brow furrowed, meaning. Kate's reply was a blade of breath. They want us here. The door to the hub creaked open before she touched it. Ant's voice carried out into the cold. Morgan, just like your grandfather, unable to resist the game. The room glowed with monitors, maps, codes streaming across the screens. Stood at the center, flanked by 6 armed men. He looked older than the photograph, but not weaker. His posture was regal, his eyes sharp with conviction. Kate leveled her pistol, her voice steel. Shut it down now. Almost smiled. Shut it down, my dear, you misunderstand, it has already begun. Walker's pistol swept across the guards. Stand down or you die here. Raised a hand and the guards didn't move. His voice was calm, almost patient. You remind me of Thomas, the same fire, the same blindness. He too believed he could stop inevitability with courage and conviction, and like him, you will fail. Kate's grip tightened. My grandfather stopped you in Morocco, in 78, in 91. He broke every move you made. His eyes flickered, and yet here I am still moving pieces while Thomas is dust. Kate stepped closer, fury burning beneath her calm. This ends tonight. Tilted his head, studying her as though she were part of an experiment. You think Prometheus is me. You think it dies with my breath. Prometheus is structure. It is code. It is men like Phillips seated across your government. It is operatives in London, Berlin, Paris. It is inevitability. Kill me and the system endures. Kate's voice cut through like ice. Then I'll burn the system piece by piece. Smile finally touched his lips. Then you truly are your grandfather's granddaughter. Gunfire cracked the silence. The guards moved first. Walker dropped 2 before they cleared their rifles. Kate dove behind a console, bullets sparking against metal. She fired back, clean shots, measured breath. 1 man down, another stumbling. Smoke filled the room as Walker tossed a flash grenade. The blast disoriented the last guard. Kate finished him with a single shot. The room fell silent again, save for the hum of the servers. Remained standing, untouched. His eyes glowed with cold amusement. Efficient, he said, but wasted. Kate moved on him fast, pressing to his temple. Shut it down. He didn't flinch. You cannot shut down an idea. Walker swept the consoles, scanning the codes streaming across the screens. It's real. The financial systems, power grids. He's already triggered the cascade. Kate's chest tightened. Then we stop it here. His gaze didn't waver. You'll never reach them all. By the time you cut 1 string, 10 more will unravel. Kate's voice sharpened. Maybe, but we don't stop playing because the board is complicated. She slammed him against the console, her fury breaking through. My grandfather bled to stop you, and if it kills me, I'll do the same. Chuckled softly, almost pitying. You are too late, the storm is already here. Walker's fingers flew across the keyboard, her training from cyber warfare units kicking in. Lines of code shifted, scrambled. Redundancies everywhere, she muttered. Mirrors, relays, backups. Every time I cut one, it reroutes. Kate held his gaze, her voice low, dangerous. Where's the command string, the core? Only smiled. Would you like me to tell you, child? Would that make you feel clever? The truth is simpler. There is no single core. The node is everywhere. Kate's fury surged, but beneath it a memory flickered. Her grandfather's voice years ago teaching her chess. Every system has a center. Every fortress has a heart. It's never where they want you to look. It's where the board bends around it. Her eyes darted to the servers, not the glowing consoles but the old unit in the corner, wires feeding silently into the walls. Outdated, overlooked. The decoy wasn't the system. The decoy was the noise. "That one," she said sharply, pointing. Walker looked. "You're sure?" Kate's voice was steady. "I'm sure." Walker didn't hesitate. She yanked the cables, ripping them free. The screens flickered, then froze. His eyes finally changed. Rage. "No." Kate slammed him to the ground, zip-tying his wrists. Game over. But it was. Because as the last screen died, an alert pulsed across the surviving console. A single phrase, repeating in red. "Phase 4 engaged." Walker's voice caught. "What the hell is Phase 4? Slaff was low, bitter, triumphant. "The real endgame." Kate pressed the barrel against his temple. "Where?" His answer was a whisper, but it cut like a knife. "Home, Washington." Kate's stomach turned to ice. Walker's voice shook. "If they've planted assets inside D.C." Smiled through his bloodied lip. "Not assets, triggers, already waiting." Kate stood, her heart hammering. "Then we go back." She hauled him to his feet, fury burning through her exhaustion. The endgame wasn't Warsaw. It wasn't Brussels. It was home. And time was bleeding away. What does it mean when the storm comes home? Kate stared out the jet window as the Atlantic stretched endless beneath them, but her mind wasn't on the ocean. It was on Washington, its monuments, its streets, its quiet neighborhoods. The place she had never called home but had sworn to defend. And now, if was telling the truth, it was already wired to burn. Walker sat across from her, watching her in silence. Between them sat restrained, wrists zip-tied, his face bruised but his eyes still burning with the satisfaction of a man who believed he had already won. "You think you've stopped something," he said softly, his Russian accent heavy. "But you've only delayed inevitability. Your leaders, your people, they are fragile. A push is all it takes." Kate didn't look at him. She didn't give him the dignity of an answer. Her earpiece crackled, Harrison's voice low, controlled. "We've intercepted chatter, confirmed coded signals moving through the district. Wasn't lying. Prometheus assets are already embedded." Kate's hand tightened into a fist. "Targets." "Still vague," Harrison said, "but it matches his pattern, symbolism, visibility. They won't strike infrastructure first. They'll strike the heart of the nation, Capitol, White House, or," he hesitated, "the people who represent continuity." Walker leaned forward. "Succession." Kate's jaw tightened. "They're going after the line of succession." Harrison's silence was confirmation. Kate turned her gaze back to the window, her reflection staring back, eyes hollow with exhaustion but lit with something harder than anger. Resolve. "We don't let it happen," she whispered. They landed at under cover of night. Washington shimmered ahead, its skyline deceptively serene. Convoys of unmarked vehicles waited, already scrambling agents, but Kate knew she and Walker couldn't wait for the machinery of government to grind awake. Prometheus thrived on hesitation. They moved fast, tracing the chatter, intercepting fragments of encrypted signals. The puzzle sharpened piece by piece until the target came into focus. Not the Capitol, not the White House. The National Cathedral. Sunday service, hundreds of civilians, but more than that, half the cabinet scheduled to attend. A ceremony broadcast live, a moment of faith turned into terror. Prometheus's message would be simple: even your sanctuaries burn. Kate's chest tightened, memories flickering of her grandfather teaching her to sit in silence, to listen. Evil doesn't always strike the obvious. It strikes where people feel safe. She felt the weight of his words now. And she felt the weight of knowing this would be the last board she played on. Dawn broke pale and cold over Washington as they approached the cathedral. Its spires cut the sky, bells tolling in the distance. Crowds gathered, security already visible, but not enough. Not for what was coming. Kate's eyes scanned the rooftops. Too many blind spots, too many windows. "Walk the perimeter," she murmured. Walker split left, weaving through civilians, her hand brushing the pistol beneath her jacket. Kate moved right, slipping past ushers and guards, her senses sharpened to the point of pain. That's when she saw it. A van parked at the curb, ordinary enough, delivery markings, plates clean. But the undercarriage sagged too low. Kate didn't hesitate. She sprinted, yanking the back doors open. Inside, C4, enough to shred the cathedral's stone into dust. A man lunged from the driver's seat, pistol raised. Kate slammed the door into him, the shot grazing her shoulder. Pain burned, but she didn't falter. She fired once, dropping him where he stood. Her radio crackled, Walker's voice sharp. "Snipers, North Spire, 2 of them." Kate's heart pounded. "You take the roof, I'll handle the van." She climbed inside, eyes darting over the detonator wired into a small transmitter. A dead man's switch. One wrong move and the cathedral would collapse in on itself. Her breath slowed, her hands steady. Every system has a center. Every fortress has a heart. She traced the wire, found the trigger, cut one, then another. The light on the transmitter blinked once, then died. The bomb was silent. "Van neutralized," she breathed. Gunshots cracked from above, Walker's sharp voice in her ear. 2 down, 3rd moving, east window. Kate burst from the van, scanning the stained glass high above. A figure leaned out, rifle aimed into the crowd. She raised her pistol, fired once. The glass shattered, the sniper slumping out of view. Silence followed, broken only by the bells. For a moment, Kate thought it was over. But then's voice came through her radio. Not Harrison's line, not NATO. Direct, personal. "You stopped the cathedral, but Prometheus never relied on one strike. Do you really think I came to Washington without a second blade?" Her blood froze. Walker's voice came sharp. "Multiple detonations triggered downtown, transit hubs, federal buildings." Kate's chest constricted. "How many?" "Too many," Walker whispered. The next 30 minutes blurred into chaos. Sirens, explosions, smoke rising from Union Station, from courthouses, from bridges. Not leveled buildings, but wounds, precise, psychological. Just enough destruction to cripple, not to erase. Prometheus hadn't wanted Washington destroyed. They wanted it paralyzed. Panic, mistrust, collapse. Kate and Walker moved through the chaos, coordinating evacuations, disabling secondary devices, pulling civilians from shattered glass and fire. Every face she touched, every scream she heard, cut deeper than bullets ever had. And through it all, his voice lingered in her head. Inevitability. Night fell heavy. Washington smoldered under its stars, the city both standing and broken. Emergency crews worked by floodlight, soldiers cordoned off ruins, civilians wandered with ash on their clothes and terror in their eyes. Kate sat alone on the cathedral steps, her jacket torn, blood dried on her sleeve. Walker stood nearby, speaking quietly into a secure phone, reporting the scale of damage. Admiral Harrison's voice finally broke through. "Casualty reports coming in, dozens dead, hundreds injured, but it could have been thousands. You stopped the cathedral, you stopped the slaughter." Kate closed her eyes. The weight of his words pressed down instead of lifting. "We didn't stop Prometheus," she whispered. "No," Harrison admitted, "but you gave us a chance to fight another day, and sometimes that's all survival is." Never made it to trial. Within 24 hours, his transport convoy was hit outside Warsaw. No survivors, no trace of who pulled the trigger. Phillips's arrest sparked chaos at the highest levels. Whispers of treason, of silence, of cover-ups. The truth would never see the light intact. and Kate Morgan faded back into the shadows. No medals, no speeches, no record. Only the quiet knowledge that she had held the line long enough for others to breathe. She stood alone weeks later at her grandfather's grave, the winter air biting, her breath misting against the stone. Thomas Morgan, the engraving read. Beneath it simply, soldier, father, shadow. Kate laid the black knight beside the stone, her fingers lingering on the cold marble. They tried again, she whispered, and I stopped what I could, but not everything, never everything. The wind carried her words away, but she kept speaking, her voice breaking softer with each syllable. You were right, Granddad. Every board has a center, every fortress has a heart. But what you never told me is, sometimes the center isn't where the enemy hides, it's where we stand. And sometimes we break just holding it. Her eyes burned, but she didn't wipe them. Because dignity doesn't beg, it doesn't demand. It endures. And when she finally turned and walked away, leaving the night behind, the graveyard was silent. Not in victory, not in defeat, but in the quiet truth of survival. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.